A cruel stepmother kicked her out of the house she called home. With only a small bag of clothes on her head and walking sticks under her arms, she had no one to turn to. She walked into the street, struggling to survive. But one day, destiny brought her face to face with a wealthy millionaire who changed her life forever. How did he turn her pain into a story of incredible success? Follow me as we uncover how a disabled young lady rose from the trenches to become an international fashion icon. A journey of love, pain, sacrifice, betrayal, and breathtaking success. Emma was a brilliant and joyful teenager, living in the bustling metropolis of Riverdale. Her neighbors adored her spirit, while her instructors praised both her intelligence and gentle nature. Her father, Mr. Richardson, frequently journeyed away on business but never forgot to bring back presents. Her mother, Mrs. Sarah, worked as a talented dressmaker from their home. Emma's world overflowed with warmth and joy until one morning she discovered her mother looking frail and colorless in bed. The physician claimed it was nothing serious, but days stretched into weeks without improvement. Even while battling illness, Mrs. Sarah continued nurturing Emma, calling her, "My precious light." Emma felt tremendous anxiety, praying daily for her mother's recovery and hoping their happy days would return soon. Emma's father, Mr. Richardson, cancelled all his business trips to tend to his ailing wife. But one peaceful dawn, Emma awakened to the devastating scene of family members weeping. Her father embraced her firmly and explained that her mother had gone to be with the angels, then carefully placed her mother's treasured necklace around Emma's neck. Emma was merely 13 years old then, experiencing a hollow feeling beyond words. Her father remained nearby, abandoning all his work commitments, while attempting to fill the void her mother had created. Yet nothing could replace her mother's gentle touch and loving presence. Weeks afterward, her father understood he must resume traveling for business or watch everything he'd built crumble. However, he wrestled with leaving Emma completely alone, since nobody else could provide the care she deserved. One afternoon, several family members visited their home. While sipping the refreshments offered to them, they expressed their concerns to him. "We understand that no woman could ever replace your beloved wife in your heart, or in Emma's world. But Emma remains a growing girl who requires feminine guidance." One relative explained. The others agreed completely. "She needs someone to nurture her, direct her path, and educate her, particularly during your absence. Someone she can approach when longing for mother becomes overwhelming." Another family member continued. Mr. Richardson listened carefully without immediate response, but their suggestions weighed heavily on his mind. That evening, while standing at Emma's bedroom entrance watching her sleep soundly, he reconsidered what his relatives had shared. He pictured Emma maturing without female mentorship, to teach her things only a mother figure could provide. That night, he chose to follow their guidance and seek a new wife. Not just anyone, but someone who would be perfect for his daughter. 9 months afterward, during a business appointment near a children's park, Mr. Richardson observed a gorgeous young woman named Victoria happily entertaining kids. Her compassion and gentleness with them impressed him even more than her appearance. Believing she might make an excellent stepmother for Emma, he approached and introduced himself, leading to friendship. Throughout the following weeks, they met regularly, exchanging stories and sharing laughs. But eventually, Mr. Richardson brought Victoria to meet Emma at her beloved ice cream shop. Victoria's sweet manner quickly captured Emma's affection, and they started enjoying time together. As months passed, Victoria developed closer bonds with both father and daughter. Mr. Richardson eventually asked for her hand in marriage, convinced she would bring additional happiness to their household, and she said yes. They wed in a beautiful ceremony, with Emma dressed elegantly and beaming with joy. Initially, everything seemed wonderful, as Victoria showered Emma with love and attention daily. But following the wedding, Emma began noticing Victoria's gradual transformation. At first, she assumed it was simply exhaustion from all the celebration activities. However, Victoria's sweetness seemed to disappear, though only when Mr. Richardson was absent. When he stayed home, Victoria was all warmth, embracing Emma, inquiring about her activities, and serving her generously during meals. But whenever he departed for work, her behavior completely changed. She ceased laughing with Emma, and instead sent her on endless tasks, seldom expressing appreciation. One afternoon, Emma purchased the incorrect vegetables from the store after Victoria had dispatched her on an errand. That terrible day, she received a shocking slap across the face, her very first. She felt completely devastated and wept throughout the night. Emma couldn't inform her father, because whenever he returned home, Victoria would transform back into her gentle self, speaking tenderly, smiling brightly, and even offering small gifts. To Mr. Richardson, everything appeared ideal. But for Emma, it was like living in two separate realities, one when her father was present, and an entirely different existence when he was gone. Years went by, and one sweltering afternoon while Emma was studying, Victoria entered with a shopping list and cash, commanding her to visit the marketplace for supplies and return immediately. Emma understood that arriving late would result in harsh words or missing dinner, consequences she'd faced previously. She dressed hurriedly and took a taxi, remembering her deceased mother's affection and how Victoria's pre-marriage kindness had been merely pretense. At the marketplace, after completing her purchases, the bus station was overcrowded. Anxiety about Victoria's anger if she returned late led her to choose a motorcycle instead of a taxi. Despite her discomfort with motorcycles, she provided the driver with directions to her home, and they departed. The ride began smoothly, but just a few miles from their destination, disaster struck. A massive truck came thundering toward them, veering into their path to dodge a large crater in the road. The motorcycle operator yanked violently sideways to escape collision. Everything occurred in seconds. Emma crashed to the pavement, her knees and elbows burning with agony as they scraped the rough asphalt. When it ended, the motorcycle was pinning down poor Emma's leg. Emma remained motionless in terror as bystanders rushed to assist. Someone lifted the fallen dyke, while another helped her to a sitting position. A crowd formed around them, but before anyone could inquire about the incident, she lost consciousness. Fortunately, a neighbor driving past recognized her lying on the street. The neighbor stopped immediately, hurried over, and was horrified to see Emma hurt. Without hesitation, she grabbed her phone and contacted Victoria to come to the location. When Victoria arrived, her expression was ashen. She knelt beside Emma, speaking with a voice full of concern, tears flowing down her cheeks, as though genuinely affected. Emma was transported to the medical center where doctors worked swiftly. Her father received notification as well. She was brought into the operating room, where surgery was immediately performed on her leg. Hours later, the physician summoned Victoria to his office. She will require walking aids for mobility. I cannot guarantee whether she'll regain full walking ability in the future. We can only pray it mends properly, but miracles are always possible. The doctor stated. Victoria collapsed in full sorrow at the doctor's office, but secretly in her heart, she felt no genuine remorse. She went directly to Emma's hospital room and sat beside her bed. She gazed at her leg covered in medical wrappings and smirked to herself. The physician mentioned you might never walk normally again. You'll need walking aids, she declared without any trace of sympathy, and exited the room. Emma's spirit crushed within her chest. She cherished running and playing chase games with her school friends. The possibility of losing her mobility brought tears to her eyes. But just when she believed she finally had evidence to reveal Victoria's true behavior to her father, something disturbing occurred. That night at the medical facility, when all the medical staff had departed, and the hospital room was silent, Victoria entered her room once more. She leaned close to Emma, her voice quiet but threatening. "You must never tell your father I sent you to the store when this accident occurred," she stated firmly and deliberately. "If you dare, I will ensure you suffer for it your entire life." Emma's mouth quivered, but she agreed silently. Her chest felt weighted down, not only from the pain in her legs, but from the secret she was now compelled to guard. It had been her only opportunity to expose Victoria's real character. Yet she understood that defying her stepmother would only create more problems. With her father traveling constantly, no one would protect her from Victoria's wrath. The following morning, Mr. Richardson returned to the city and went immediately to the hospital to visit his daughter. When he entered the room and saw Emma lying in bed with her legs bound in bandages, his eyes grew wide with horror and filled with tears. "Anna," he cried out, his voice cracking as he rushed to her bedside. "What occurred? Why were you outside when we have vehicles at home? Who sent you out?" he questioned. Emma's pulse quickened. Victoria's threat rang in her ears, and she felt caught between terror and honesty. Fear overwhelmed her. Suddenly, the room door opened and Victoria entered, making it even harder for her to speak truthfully, even as she desired to. So she forced a weak smile and whispered gently, "I simply wanted to purchase some treats from the market, Daddy. I didn't want to bother anyone, so I went by myself." Her father looked puzzled and confused. "You could have asked Victoria to accompany you, or sent our security guard. At minimum, you should never venture out alone," he said. Before he could pose additional questions, Victoria stepped forward, displaying such convincing worry that even her voice overflowed with compassion. "I had no knowledge she left the house. She must have slipped out while I was occupied in the kitchen. But thank heavens she didn't lose her life. Please allow her to rest," Victoria said. Then she kissed Emma on the forehead. "Recover quickly, my dear," she added before departing the room with Emma's father. Once they were outside the room in the hospital hallways, Victoria began sowing seeds of suspicion in Mr. Richardson's mind. She claimed Emma was being dishonest when she said she had left the house to buy treats. "I'm concerned she's been spending excessive time with boys from the area. Actually, I heard she has a boyfriend somewhere and was heading to meet him when the accident occurred," Victoria lied smoothly. "She always behaves this way when you're not home. I attempt to guide her, but she doesn't always cooperate. You understand how teenagers can be?" she explained. Initially, Mr. Richardson dismissed these claims. Emma was his precious child. He struggled to believe such things, but Victoria persisted. She continued spreading falsehoods about Emma, and gradually those lies began taking root in his heart. Emma, still recovering in the hospital, remained unaware that while she was healing from her physical injuries, Victoria was secretly creating emotional wounds in her father's heart. She was constructing barriers between them, destroying his faith in her. The day before Emma's hospital discharge, Victoria received surprising news. She had been feeling unwell and went for an examination, but was stunned when the doctor informed her she was 2 months pregnant. When she shared this news with her husband that evening, his face brightened with pure delight. He showed happiness in a way Victoria hadn't witnessed before. He embraced her with passion and began speaking enthusiastically about their future, about how wonderful holding a newborn would be again. "Emma will finally have a sibling," he declared. But those words made Victoria feel uneasy. The next morning, Emma left the hospital. She had spent the night imagining how cozy and joyful she would feel returning home after weeks away, expecting her father would spoil her and provide the same devoted attention he had given when her mother died. Instead, when she arrived home, the atmosphere felt changed. Her father was grinning and constantly cheerful, not because Emma had returned, but due to Victoria's pregnancy. Most of his focus centered on Victoria, doting on her and ensuring her comfort. Emma felt deeply wounded. It appeared as though the love her father once held for her had somehow transferred to Victoria. She convinced herself it was foolish. Her father still cared for her. But for the first time ever, she felt like she didn't truly belong in her own home. She felt unseen in the house and missed her deceased mother more intensely than ever. She spent most hours in her bedroom, partially because moving around was challenging for her. Her father still checked on her occasionally when he was home, but never lingered long. Just a brief, "How are you managing?" and a forehead kiss before returning to Victoria. He trusted completely that Victoria was providing excellent care, so he didn't monitor closely or recognize the sadness and isolation in her eyes. Since Emma could no longer run or play as she once did, she discovered joy in something different: drawing. Daily, she filled her sketchbook pages with gorgeous concepts for outfits, jackets, and evening wear. She found pleasure in creating art. Though she couldn't wear or construct the garments herself, her sketchbooks became her prized possessions, and drawing helped her escape the pain and loneliness. As months progressed, Victoria's pregnancy advanced, and when she reached 8 months, she began contemplating her baby's birth. Deep within her selfish heart, a wicked idea started forming. She refused to let her baby share any love and attention with Emma. Therefore, she planned to eliminate Emma permanently. One morning, a perfect chance arose, and Victoria seized it immediately. Mr. Richardson received an urgent request to attend a business conference overseas. He informed them he would be gone for 2 full weeks. As he departed that morning, he smiled at Emma and said, "Victoria will look after you wonderfully, my dear. Behave well, and I'll bring you something special when I come back." Emma nodded and hugged him tightly. But deep inside, she feared what might happen. And confirming her worst fears, the following day, Victoria marched into Emma's room clutching an empty wallet. Her expression was icy as she stared at Emma, who was concentrating on her sketchbook, and demanded, "Where is my cash, Emma?" Emma glanced up in bewilderment. "I don't understand what you're talking about. I didn't steal any money. I've been in my room the entire day." But Victoria pretended disbelief. Her voice became louder. "I know you stole it. Stop lying to me," she screamed. She blamed Emma repeatedly. Then, without allowing her to explain, she collected Emma's possessions, her clothing, her walking aids, and even her beloved sketchbooks, and hurled them outside the house, item by item. "You cannot remain here any longer. I refuse to share a home with a thief. Leave and never return," she told Emma. Emma couldn't resist. Victoria was 8 months pregnant, and any physical confrontation could endanger her. She begged for forgiveness as she crawled across the cold floor without her walking aids. But Victoria ignored her pleas, dragged her from the house, and secured the door. Then she warned the security guard not to permit Emma inside the property, or he would be fired. And just like that, Emma found herself seated at the entrance of her father's house, her heart racing and her eyes brimming with tears. She had no idea where to go or who might help her. She remained there for hours, hoping Victoria would reconsider, but nothing changed. As time passed and darkness approached, Emma realized she couldn't spend the night outside by the gate. It was too dangerous. She packed her treasured sketchbooks into one bag, along with some clothing. Luckily, she discovered some cash hidden inside one of the bags. Slinging the small backpack over her shoulder and positioning her walking aids under her arms, she departed, abandoning everything else. Step by step, she navigated down the empty street using her crutches. She was only 17 years old then and had no destination in mind, but she told herself she simply had to keep going. When her arms became exhausted and her legs throbbed, she noticed a small delivery truck parked beside the road. At the rear was a large wooden board leaning against the side, creating a small space where she could shelter from the chilly breeze. Emma struggled to climb onto the low truck and curled up there, clutching her backpack tightly as she fell asleep, murmuring to herself, "Tomorrow will bring better things." The next morning, Emma awakened to loud sounds. When she opened her eyes, she realized she had slept too deeply and was now in a completely different town. The truck driver had traveled during the night, and she had been too soundly asleep to realize. She struggled to climb down from the truck's rear, her backpack still hanging from her shoulder. Hunger twisted in her belly. She hadn't eaten since yesterday afternoon, and it was already approaching midday. Slowly, she made her way to a streetlight beside the road where she spotted a woman selling bean pastries. Emma retrieved money from her backpack and approached her. "Excuse me, may I purchase one for 10 naira? She asked quietly. The woman examined her walking aids and the coins in her palm. "It costs 20 naira now. Everything has become more expensive," she replied coldly, then returned to her work, completely disregarding Emma. Emma mumbled an apology and quickly backed away, her face burning with embarrassment. She wandered aimlessly for hours under the blazing sun, stopping at every small business and stand she encountered. "Do you need assistance?" she would inquire. But the responses were identical. They all wanted someone strong, quick, and skilled. One shop owner even chuckled directly at her. "You believe I'll employ someone who can't even walk properly?" Emma attempted to smile as though his words didn't sting, but a piercing ache struck her heart. When the sun started setting, her legs hurt so terribly she could barely continue moving. She ended up near a busy crossroads and leaned against a street lamp to rest. While resting there, her stomach rumbling with hunger, she opened her backpack and retrieved her sketchbook. She flipped through its pages, appreciating the dresses, coats, and gowns she had drawn, hoping to distract herself from everything. Then suddenly, a powerful wind gust grabbed the sketchbook from her grasp, setting the other loose papers in her bag scattering as well. The pages tumbled wildly across the street, sliding along the pavement, blown toward the passing vehicles. Emma's heart stopped immediately. Terror shot through her. Without consideration, she hobbled into the road, ignoring the angry car horns. Drivers yelled, but she didn't listen. That book contained her entire world. As she began collecting the pieces of her artwork, a black luxury car with dark windows slowed suddenly to avoid striking her. Inside the vehicle, a man wearing an immaculate, costly suit was speaking on his phone when his driver abruptly stopped, jarring him uncomfortably. He was about to scold his driver when he noticed Emma in front of the car gathering papers from the street. Intrigued, he exited the vehicle to assist. She didn't see him initially, not until his shadow covered her as he extended his hand holding some of her papers. Emma looked at him with confusion until she saw what he was offering.
"Oh, thank you so much,"
she said, taking the pages carefully and pressing them back into the book so they wouldn't blow away again. The man's gaze moved over the pages, and he was amazed by the sketches he observed. "These belong to you?" he asked with interest.
"Yes,"
she responded, still focused on collecting the remaining papers from the road. He crouched to gather the final few pages, examining them as he handed them over. "Did you create these yourself?" he asked once more. "Yes, I did. But," she answered, smiling, pleased that someone appreciated her work. "You possess real talent," the man stated. But before she could respond, he reached into his jacket pocket, despite the situation being her fault, and pulled out some money. "I apologize for this incident. Please accept this," he offered. She stepped back quickly, shaking her head. "No, please. I'm perfectly fine. Your apology is sufficient," she replied. Even though she desperately required the money, she refused. The man observed her for a long moment, as if trying to comprehend why anyone in her situation would decline financial help. He was about to turn and leave, but instead insisted, "Please accept it. I'm not offering this from sympathy, but as recognition for your artistic talent." This time she smiled and gladly accepted the money. As she struggled to balance herself on her crutches, the man returned to his car and his driver departed immediately. Emma simply stood watching as the vehicle vanished into traffic. She didn't get the opportunity to express gratitude. She quickly placed the sketchbook and its pages into her bag, then visited the nearest restaurant to purchase food. While she sat eating, a man in his early 30s observed her. But it wasn't the walking aids that attracted his attention. It was the necklace around her neck. The same necklace her father had given her mother before she passed away. And she finished eating. The man approached her and began questioning her about her necklace. She wanted to ignore him initially, until he mentioned he would pay substantial money if she agreed to sell it. Emma considered carefully. It was the only memento she possessed of her mother, but she also needed to survive. After lengthy deliberation, she decided to sell the necklace. The man examined it and handed her a stack of cash, explaining that the necklace was solid gold. With the money she received, Emma purchased some clothing at a nearby second-hand store. She arranged them on a mat beside the road for sale, worn jeans, shirts, and dresses. She sat on a low wooden stool, her walking aids resting against a post, calling out to people passing by to buy from her. Some days she sold more items, other days fewer. But she was grateful to have income. And despite being beside the road, Emma never stopped drawing. While waiting for customers, she would open her sketchbook, pick up a pencil, and begin creating new designs. It was her method of escaping the marketplace noise and the world's cruelty, and it made her feel connected to her deceased mother. One significant day, as she sat beside the road with her merchandise, completely absorbed in her sketchbook, a black luxury car passed by again. It was the same vehicle that had nearly struck her. Inside, a man sat in the back seat. He gazed out through the tinted windows and saw Emma once more. He recognized her immediately as the woman who had risked everything for a few pages of sketches. Now she was surrounded by used clothing, yet still immersed in her design world. Emma didn't notice him whatsoever. The man considered stopping, about lowering the window to speak, but instead he sat quietly and observed her as his driver continued with traffic until she disappeared from view. The man in the black luxury car was Mr. Daniel Stone, a young billionaire at just 24 years old. Everyone in the fashion industry recognized his name. His photograph appeared in style magazines and publications worldwide. He was the wealthy founder of the famous fashion empire Stone Couture, with flagship stores in Lagos, Dubai, and Paris. His creations were celebrated globally, and even royalty and celebrities wore his gowns. People admired his work and treasured his designs. But there was something else about Daniel, something only those who worked with him truly understood. Daniel was fixated on excellence. He never accepted mediocrity. When Daniel reached the office that day after seeing Emma beside the road again, he sat at the head of a long conference table. That same morning, his designers had flown in from around the globe to join him for a presentation. The International Fashion Exhibition is in 6 weeks, Daniel announced as he leaned back in his chair. And I want something that will make Paris hold its breath for 5 minutes. I don't want lovely or pleasant. I want pure magic. Everyone in that building understood that the International Fashion Exhibition was the year's most important event. It was the type of show that could launch a designer's career or destroy it entirely. The world's cameras would be present, along with the most influential buyers. The designers all nodded enthusiastically and began presenting their concepts one by one. But as each one showed him their finest work, he remained unimpressed. He watched patiently until the final designer revealed their sketch. Still, none of them captured Daniel's attention. He stood up, adjusted his jacket, and told them, "We will reconvene next week. When you return, bring me something I've never witnessed before, something the world has never seen before." The designers quickly collected their materials and left the room. None of them could protest. They knew better than to attempt it. When Daniel was alone again, he stood by the tall glass windows and then gazed out into the city, but he wasn't truly seeing it. "Oh, I have no reason." But Daniel. His thoughts were elsewhere, thinking about Emma, the young woman on walking aids, her eyes bright with quiet resolve, risking her safety to retrieve her sketch papers as if they were invaluable treasures. He remembered viewing those sketches and how astounded he had been by their beauty. He had only examined them briefly, yet they had remained with him. As hours passed, Daniel couldn't stop thinking about Emma's sketches. The designs kept appearing in his mind, haunting him like a vision he couldn't release. He found himself distracted during phone conversations and meetings, seeing Emma's pencil marks in his thoughts repeatedly, imagining them in luxurious fabrics, visualizing how they would appear once created. By day's end, Daniel couldn't control himself any longer. "She might possess the design that will leave Paris speechless this year," he told himself. And so, he decided he would locate Emma and offer her employment at his company with a proposal she couldn't refuse. Meanwhile, back in Emma's home, her father, Mr. Richardson, had returned from his business conference overseas. He came back with a joy only a man who had worked tirelessly for his family could experience. His luggage was filled with presents for Victoria and for his daughter Emma. The moment he entered the living room, Victoria greeted him with open arms and a smile. "Welcome home, sweetheart," she said, kissing his cheek. But when she noticed him heading toward Emma's room, she stopped him and politely requested he sit down. The smile on her face disappeared, replaced by an expression of sorrow. "There is something I must tell you, honey," she said sadly. Mr. Richardson looked at her with curiosity. "What occurred?" he asked, worried. Victoria paused for a moment, as if searching for proper words. When she finally spoke, her voice was measured. "It concerns Emma," she said finally. Richardson's entire body tensed immediately. "Is she okay?" Victoria released a deep, heavy sigh that made Richardson's chest feel tighter. Then she placed her hand on his and began. "Sweetheart, while you were gone, I tried desperately to guide her, to help her become a responsible young woman. But she has been challenging. Very challenging. One day, she spoke so rudely to me, so disrespectfully. I could barely believe those words came from her. So I corrected her gently. I simply wanted her to understand that her behavior was inappropriate. But instead of apologizing, she ran out of the house angrily." Richardson's eyes widened with shock. "Ran out?" he asked. "Yes," Victoria replied. "I assumed she would calm down and return after a few hours, but she never came back. I waited for 2 days, but she didn't return. I was extremely worried, but what could I do? She is no longer a child, Richardson. She must learn that her choices have consequences." Richardson rubbed his temples. The image of Emma leaving without explanation troubled him greatly. "Why would she behave that way? I've never known her to be so stubborn," he said, his voice mixing worry and frustration. Victoria moved closer to him, softening her voice. "Sweetheart, I've been wanting to tell you. You've indulged her. You've always provided everything she desired. You never allowed her to face real consequences. She believes she can simply disappear whenever she dislikes being corrected." Richardson stared at her. Her words felt uncomfortable in his chest, but he couldn't argue as doubt took hold in his heart. Victoria reached over and gently grasped his hand. "I care about you, Richardson, and I want what's best for Emma. But sometimes allowing her independence is the right thing. She'll return when life teaches her the lessons she needs to understand. She explained. You believe I should just wait? Not contact authorities to search for her? He asked. Yes, sweetheart. She will come back eventually. I'm certain she's staying with one of her friends. Don't worry yourself about her. You need to relax, she answered. Richardson's heart disagreed with her words, but her influence over him made it difficult to think clearly or challenge her suggestions. When he finally found courage to ask if she knew any of Emma's friends, Victoria suddenly cried out in pain. Her water had broken, and labor was beginning. Richardson quickly rushed her to the hospital, and thoughts of Emma left his mind once again. At that exact moment, Emma sat under the sun beside the road, close to her thrift clothing display. She held her pencil with her sketchbook open on her lap. She was drawing a tailored jumpsuit with elegant sleeves, the type of design she could only imagine ever creating. Then a shadow covered her page. When she looked up, she froze. It was Daniel again. He remembered her from before. It's you once more, she said, surprised, a smile crossing her face. Thank you for the money you provided last time, she added. But Daniel didn't acknowledge her gratitude. We have more pieces, and we have more influences at the women's home and after dawn. But Daniel didn't acknowledge her gratitude. I am Daniel, he said. I don't know your name, but I came searching for you. Emma's fingers gripped her notebook tighter. Why? Did I do something wrong? She asked. Daniel smiled and crouched slightly until their eyes aligned. So, no, you've done nothing wrong. But ever since I first viewed your designs, they haven't left my thoughts. I want to purchase your work. More than that, I want you to join my team, to develop your concepts, and create without limitations. Emma couldn't believe what she was hearing. She was torn between disbelief and doubt. The words seemed too incredible for her. You want me to join your team? I have no formal education. I can't even sew because of my legs. Oh, she responded. That's irrelevant. I'm not seeking someone to sew. I'm seeking ideas the world hasn't witnessed. And you possess them, Daniel said without hesitation. Emma studied his expression carefully and then asked, Why would someone like you want to collaborate with someone like me? Daniel stood up and extended his hand to hold hers before finally answering. I want to work with you because true talent doesn't need permission to shine. Anna's heart wavered. Part of her wanted to decline. Life had taught her that wonderful opportunities often carried hidden prices. But something in Daniel's eyes made her feel she could trust him, something that didn't seem like charity. For a moment, Emma considered before she finally took his extended hand and answered. All right, I will give it a try. Daniel's expression softened, but he didn't celebrate or speak too hastily. What is your name? He finally inquired. Emma laughed and replied, I thought you'd never ask, Mr. Daniel. My name is Emma. His driver assisted Emma into the car, and they drove away. Emma's life began changing in ways she had never dreamed. They traveled through areas of the city she had only seen in films. When they reached the luxury apartment, Daniel allowed her to freshen up, eat, and rest. Her new residence was compact but gorgeous. She adored the room colors and the lovely fragrance that filled the space. The following day, a driver arrived to collect her. He provided her with beautiful new clothes to wear and transported her to Daniel's company. Zephyra, he came to meet me. I was too late to die. There. She received a spacious creative workspace with all the tools and freedom she needed to bring her ideas to reality. Emma didn't waste a single moment. She began working immediately, releasing the imagination that had always been confined in her mind. Hours became days, and days became weeks. Emma worked relentlessly, investing her soul into each design. When her leg ached, She adjusted in her chair and continued sketching.
Even when her fingers cramped, she rubbed them and persevered.
She explored textiles in her imagination and envisioned dresses that seemed to move with the wearer. When the time came for Emma to present her collection to Daniel's senior design team, and to Daniel himself, the room became quiet as her sketches were displayed one by one. The designers who had witnessed and created fashion at the pinnacle stared in amazement. Finally, one of them broke the silence and asked, "Where did you discover her?" Daniel only smiled slightly, his gaze on Emma, and answered, "Sometimes, talent discovers you." And for the first time in ages, Emma felt genuine hope. When the presentation concluded, the decision was clear. Emma's collection would feature prominently in Stone Couture's showcase at the International Fashion Exhibition. She couldn't believe the words when she heard them. It seemed like a dream she might awaken from any moment. Her joy was boundless, and she knew in that instant her life would never be the same. Back in Emma's home, Victoria, her stepmother, had always appeared flawless in Richardson's eyes. Or at least that was the facade she maintained. She had delivered a healthy baby boy, and this brought Richardson tremendous happiness. He spared no cost in providing Victoria whatever she desired. But problems began emerging quietly. Initially, it was minor things. Victoria started guarding her phone closely as if it were more valuable than diamonds. She would leave the room to take calls. She began requesting money from Richardson more frequently. Richardson tried not to worry about it. He had promised himself he would trust her. He told himself she was simply private, and that it might be because she was now a new mother. However, one afternoon, everything collapsed. Victoria left her phone on the sofa while she went to the bathroom, an error she had never made previously. Richardson entered the room and saw the phone lying there. He had no intention of touching it, but the screen suddenly illuminated and buzzed with a new message. Almost instinctively, Richardson reached for it. His purpose was simply to check for photos of their baby. But when he unlocked the screen, everything transformed. Curiosity slowed his breathing as his eyes read the words in a conversation with a contact saved simply as Mike. The messages stated, "I miss you. Once I get the money transferred, we'll escape this place for good. He suspects nothing. I'll ensure the boy has your name on his birth certificate. Start searching for houses in Cape Town." Richardson's hands shook as he scrolled down, each message cutting deeper. He saw photographs, the type that left no uncertainty. He listened to voice messages, filled with the kind of laughter he hadn't heard from her in months. He collapsed onto the couch edge, his heart beating like thunder. Suddenly, Victoria emerged from the bathroom, humming a gentle melody and drying her hair with a towel. She stopped immediately when she saw him holding her phone. She recognized the expression of disappointment and heartbreak on his face, but instead of fear or guilt, she simply smiled and said, "Well, I suppose you discovered the truth."